If you've ever ignored a red flag in a relationship, romantic or otherwise, and then regretted it later, that's painting a red flag green. Welcome to Confessions of a Binge Eater, a podcast helping women over 50 heal what's driving your urge to eat so you can finally feel in control around food and lose weight naturally without ever needing another diet that makes you feel like a failure. I'm Tricia Nelson, a former binge eater and your host. Okay, now a few years back, I published a show that got lots of positive feedback, so I'm bringing it back. And I don't think we can hear this message enough because it's easy to fall into this trap. I'm excited to share this with you. Today's topic is, are you painting your red flags green? Now, somebody said that to me the other day, and I just about died. I thought that is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Am I painting my red flags green? And guess what? I've done that way too many times in my life, and chances are you have too. So I want to dig into this because this is definitely a driving cause of emotional eating. See, on this show, I don't talk a whole lot about food and diet and weight loss and that kind of stuff because, frankly, that's all symptomatic, okay? That is not going to get you where you need to go. It's not going to give you a solution to your problems. What is going to give you a solution is learning how to live differently so you can eat differently. The only hope of overcoming emotional eating, the only hope of losing weight and keeping it off, the only hope of having peace around food and having your head quiet down so you're not obsessing 24/7 is to change your life. Change the way you think and the way you act, okay? And the way you speak, of course. So this is, we're digging in. This is like high level stuff here. This is like graduate level stuff. But it's the best way to get where you need to go. So, case in point, are you painting your red flags green? Now, what this means is, we've got red flags in our life constantly, always in our life. We are as spiritual beings having a human experience rather than being human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings, and we have this divine GPS inside of us, telling us exactly what to do, exactly where to go, who to talk to, what jobs to apply for, literally what road to drive down. I mean, I believe we have this beautiful flow that comes from divine spirit. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it Holy Spirit. You can call it Sweet Spirit. You can call it God, anything you like. But I believe it's all the same, and it's that beautiful, loving presence that resides inside of us, right in our very being. And if you can't see the video, I'm pointing right there to my sternum, just to this area inside me. That's a lot of where I think of it as, is in my very center of my being. But it's all around, right? It's outside of me, it's inside of me, it's outside of you, and inside of you. But so much of the time we think of it as outside, like God being up in the sky. And what I really think of this beautiful, guiding, loving spirit, which I think is God, I think it does reside inside of us as divine spirit. So the point is that beautiful, loving, guiding presence is there all the time. And if we will listen, if we will pay attention, it will guide us and it will put up red flags for us. And those flags are there to help us move around them. And so we can keep on a forward movement without trouble, without strain, without misfortune. The problem with us, is, especially as emotional eaters, it's a human condition, but especially as emotional eaters, is we tend to paint those red flags green, okay? We're not listening to our divine spirit. We're not tapped in. Why? Well, a number of reasons. First of all, we're stuffed with food, and when we're eating, we cannot feel or hear that divine spirit. It's very clouded. Our guiding channel is mucked up with food, with carbs, with sugar, with overeating, with smoking, drinking, any number of things that we do compulsively. We have just basically blocked our channel, this beautiful communication with this divine spirit, by running from it, frankly. We bury it and run from it by overeating. And so this causes confusion. I spent so much time in my life confused, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was so indecisive, confused, just in this quandary all the time, asking everybody what I should do, what should I do? because I couldn't stop and drop into what my divine spirit was telling me. It was just clouded with food, and it just caused all this, brain fog and sense of indecision and confusion. So, obviously that has to change. If you really want to tap into this beautiful, loving spirit and presence and be guided by it and not wreak havoc in your life, you're going to have to stop overeating. Okay? Overeating is going to keep you muddle-headed. I mean, the foods we eat definitely directly affect how we feel, and they directly affect that communication line as well. So it's really important that, if you want to have this communication line open, if you want to be guided by spirit, if you want to be close and connected to spirit, that is directly related to your relationship with food. Okay, so just think about that. Just put that in your little pipe and smoke it, okay? But the point is, that's one of the reasons why we can't hear divine spirit. Another reason is that often we don't want to. We don't want to know what God is telling us. We don't want to hear that still small voice inside of us because it might tell us something we don't want to hear. God forbid it tells us something that's contrary to our will. And this is a big problem for emotional eaters as well, as we tend to be pretty willful. We want what we want when we want it. And we're going to do whatever we can to make it happen, by golly. This is a major cause of overeating, because when we're ramming and jamming and trying to make the world conform to our wishes and our will versus God's will, which we lose track of when it's all about us, when we are ramming and jamming, we cannot hear God speaking to us. We're just like, la, 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 this is how it's going to be. And therefore, we're missing the signs. We're painting our red flags green. And we're like, see, it says go. I'm quite sure of it. And boom, we run into trouble. So really important to watch that willfulness, watch that ramming and jamming, that pushing, that prodding, that making people do what we want them to do. I trust me, I know you are good at this. If you're like me, you know how to be manipulative and controlling. It comes with the territory. So watch for that, because that's going to cause all kinds of problems, and it's going to cause your red flags to look green. And you're going to run into trouble. You're going to crash, in fact. So self-will is a big thing. Fear, fear of taking action on what God tells us. Okay, when we hear divine spirit directing us, saying, don't go on that trip, or don't take that job, or don't hang out with that person. When we get those signals and it goes contrary to what we want, and it also makes us feel afraid, wow, I could never cancel on that friend, or I could never kind of steer away from that friendship. She depends on me so much, or the job pays so much. How could I turn it down? Fear grips us, and then, we are painting those red flags green, because we're just like, I can't possibly follow this guidance because it causes me so much fear and anxiety. And yet, if we were to follow, if we truly hear God, that still small voice inside, and we heed it, our path will be made clear. If we turn down that job that looks like the best thing ever, God will give us something better. No question about it. Better circumstances, better pay, whatever. When we look back, we'll see that it was absolutely in divine order, but we had to listen and obey first. And that's hard. It brings up a lot of fear for us. I've had to make decisions in my life, trips I didn't take that I wanted to take because I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, get the food that I needed to have, or get really just the connection that I needed on the trip. I didn't want to get isolated and then turn to food, while I'm going on this trip with all these yummy foods around. So, sometimes jobs I've turned down because they would cause me more stress than I felt like I could handle without overeating. So I've had to make some tough decisions in my life, following that still small voice, following those red flags, watching for those red flags and saying, that's a red flag, I'm going to go this way instead. Okay. The third reason why we don't listen oftentimes, and why we paint our red flags green, is because of self-sabotage. And again, something we're all acquainted with, that self-sabotage. And what is happening there? Well, I believe, and if you know my stuff, if you've been listening to me, or you've read my book, or you've been through my program, you know that there are three primary emotions that drive emotional eating are pain, fear, and guilt. Okay, pain, fear, and guilt. And that guilt is probably the hardest one to identify because it's so subtle and it's subconscious. But that's where self-sabotage comes from. When we are holding on to grudges, when we have unforgiveness for others in our lives, if we are, feeling guilty about things, if we have secrets that we haven't told anybody, if we haven't made amends for things that we've done wrong, I'll tell you, that will creep up and it'll rear its ugly head in the form of self-sabotage. And this is oftentimes why we paint our red flags green, because that self-sabotage is coming to the fore and causing us to ram and jam and to choose fear instead of faith and choose the wrong path. Choose the path that we're not being guided to choose, choose the path that we're being guided not to choose. And that is from that sense of wanting to screw ourselves over. Basically, I remember very young, I was literally in 8th grade, but this is how far back I remember this going. I was in 8th grade and I was in high school. I had an 8th grade boyfriend. Okay, I had an 8th grade boyfriend I was totally into. And then we parted ways because we went to different high schools. And then my senior year in high school, I dated him again against my better judgment, against that still small voice, right? I just thought, I've obsessed about him for 4 years. I'm going to date him again. But by then he was really kind of a pothead, druggy kind of guy, and just not the kind of guy I really should be seeing. But I dated him anyway, and I didn't listen to that voice. Well, as it turns out, this guy was, he was not good. He was no bueno. And, I was in a small town in high school. It didn't get terrible, but he did end up giving me some hot checks, and he wanted me to go to the bank and cash them. I could think had stolen some of his sister's checks or something. And I'll tell you, I did it. Okay. I went to the bank and I cashed these checks. And in my heart of hearts, I knew he was being dishonest, and I knew I was going along with a fraudulent plan. And it wasn't a conscious thing. It was just that gut feeling that, there's some funny business happening here, but I didn't follow it. I didn't speak up. I didn't ask him, are these real checks? Nothing. I just went ahead and went and did it. And I look back on that, and it was a dark time in my life. I was drinking a lot. I'd put on a lot of weight. I was just in this downward spiral, and he was a symptom of that. Had I felt better about myself, I would not have been in that situation, but he was a symptom of that. And how many times have you dated somebody or married somebody who in your heart of hearts you actually knew was not good for you, and you did it anyway because of prestige or because people are pressuring you to get married or the wedding date was already set, the plans were already made? How many times, have you gone through with something that you knew was wrong, but you did it anyway, and it was sort of this terrible way of punishing yourself? And that's what I did with this kid. Again, no big consequences, nothing happened, but I look back on that and I see those were seeds of self-hatred. Those were seeds of self-sabotage. I was feeling dark about myself, because I was eating and feeling really crappy and hating my body. It just all went with the package. It's like add salt to the wound, what's a little more pain. But we do that in our lives. And I've done it certainly as an adult as well. That's just a very vivid example. But, we are painting our red flags green every time we don't listen to that voice, every time, from either self-sabotage or fear or self-will, we're moving forward with things when the red flags are clearly there. And so I just really want to, just urge you to please start paying attention to those red flags. Stop, put away the red paint, put away the green paint, and stop painting those red flags green, because it's causing you trouble. Most of the trouble in your life is probably on account of doing this. If you look back, again, relationships is always a good thing, to reflect on. If you look back at your worst relationship and you do a little digging, and you might have already done this, you will see that the red flags were there. Okay, you had clues long before things blew up, long before, he cheated on you, or he stole your money, or she, whatever, bad mouthed you to her friends or whatever. It's, it happened long ago, and you chose not to listen. You chose not to see those red flags. Again, we've all done it. But relationships, it's very, very apparent, unfortunately, it's usually after the fact that we see the red flags. But the key is to start seeing the red flags now in any and all situations in your life, and start calling what they are. Ask God for the courage to see the truth about a situation. And if action is indicated, take the action. Ask God for help to take the action. God's guidance is perfect. It is perfect every time. It can totally be depended on. We've all taken bold steps in our lives, made scary steps. We've stepped out on faith, and it's always worked out. Think of those times when you were so afraid, but you felt compelled. It's like you had to make a move, from a job, from a relationship, from a toxic situation. We've all listened at one time or another and said, that's it. I'm going to make a move. And look how beautifully it worked out. Okay? And you can also reflect on the times it didn't, and you can probably see it's because you painted your red flags green. So this is what I want to encourage you to do is, we all have that beautiful, still small voice inside of us, directing us, loving us, guiding us every moment of the day with every decision, big or small. It doesn't matter. It could be a choice of food. Okay, if we drop in and listen, we'll know what's right for us. Listen to that divine guidance. So it doesn't have to be big things. It can be the smallest things as well. That loving presence inside of us wants to help us with every decision, every fork in the road. God is there guiding us and helping us, but we have to listen. That's our mantle. Our mantle is to listen and obey. And when we don't, we get to hurt. So I hope this lands for you. Stop painting your red flags green, okay? And conversely, stop painting the green flags red, okay? Put the red paint away too. If you get a go, if your higher power gives you a go, but you're afraid to go, do it. Go for those green flags and see where they lead you. I'll bet they'll lead you to an awesome life. If you're ready to get off the dieting roller coaster ride and finally make peace with food and with your body, talk to a Heal Your Hunger mentor about what steps you need to take based on your own history with food and weight. Go to healyourhunger.com and register for an emotional eating breakthrough session and see how fast you can experience real change. It's a complimentary evaluation, but there are limited spots available. So go to healyourhunger.com and register to speak with a mentor today.